Welcome back to Game 3 in this best of 5 series. We are in the round of 8 of this tournament, so both players are holding on pretty close at the moment. The score is 1-all. Players are obviously even, because that's kind of what 1-all means. For those who haven't watched Game 2, A, don't look at the chat, so you might want to cover it up for a couple of seconds. B, I will get to it, or I will get to what they're saying in a sec. So at the moment, OneHand is sending his Overlord out across the cliff. I haven't even introduced the players, but by now you should know who they are. We have OneHand spawning in the bottom as our purple Zerg, and we have our blue Terran in the left position, Brockemon. Now OneHand is sending the Overlord across the map, well, to the adjacent base on Shattered Temple. Now OneHand is probably going to be moving his Overlord out of the way once he does manage to spot it. If we jump to Zerg's vision, there, he did actually peep, he did see the corner of that command center. So he is going to poke away just before the Terran actually manages to get a view of that Overlord. So the Zerg is going to know where Brockemon is, but Brockemon isn't going to know where the Zerg is. Shifty. So at the moment, OneHand does have the advantage. He can choose to rush air since it is a relatively close air distance, but by the same token, the walking distance by ground is not that long either. It's probably just around 5 seconds or so longer, and you can actually get a significant ground army up a lot quicker than you can get an air army up. Now OneHand is choosing to expand before he does get a spawning pool, so he is looking for an economic play from the very start. Brockemon is doing his standard walling with 2 supply depots, slip of the tongue, and 1 barracks. So he is probably going to be going for his favorite Hellion play, or he could choose to mass Marines at the start like he chose to do last map. Hellions will probably be more effective on this map because if the Zerg does choose to go for an air attack, he is going to be really out of position. So OneHand is just sending a drone to poke around into the Terran's wall just to see what units he has, but he is going to get repelled pretty quickly by that Marine, and he isn't going to be seeing all that much anyway. And we do see the drone running up the ramp, and that is going to get repelled pretty quickly. So OneHand actually does have pretty good Overlord spread at the moment. He could use 1 Overlord here to spot any drops coming in from the Terran, since that tends to be actually pretty common. Now, Brockemon is sending his Marine out, probably going to snipe out that drone and return back to the base. I figured he was going to push out, but I guess not. Now the natural expansion for the Zerg is about to finish. He is still only running on 1 gas, only just getting his queen up, and spawning pool has finished. So at the moment, both players are going to be looking to tech up, macro up as well. Brockemon is going for his factory, so we'll just have to see whether or not he chooses to go for his Hellions or his siege tanks. He doesn't have an add-on at the barracks at the moment, probably will get one after he pumps out a couple Marines for defense. And he does throw one down now. He is getting reactive, so we're going to be seeing mainly Marines come out from the Terran. Now about what they were talking in chat before, if you did or did not see it, Brockemon and OneHand were talking about the outcome of Game 2. So if you haven't watched Game 2, I am going to spoil it for you right now, so if you don't want to get spoiled, you might want to pause this video and go watch Game 2 first. So spoilers in 3, 2, too late. Basically what happened was Brockemon chose to go with a predominantly mech army, whereas the Zerg did go for predominantly Banelings, Zerglings, and a couple of Mutas. Now at the moment, the Zerg is getting Zergling speed up as well as Infernal Pre-Igniter, so we are going to be seeing some heavy Hellion play. He is going to be looking to do some economic damage, and it is going to help him deal with the Zerglings quite effectively. And as I was saying, in Game 2, Brockemon did go for a push with pretty good number of Siege Tanks, Thors, and Marines. If he did micro his units correctly, he would have come out on top, despite the fact that Zerg did have a massive number of 83 Banelings. That is 83 Banelings. You rarely see that. But what happened was, apparently he misclicked his units, they grouped together, and the Banelings just rushed in and basically wiped the floor with the units. At the moment, Brockemon does have an open base, so he could try to run the Zerglings in, and hope that Terran's vision is not on that supply depot. But yeah. As I was saying, it is really important not to keep your units clumped up, because if they do, the Terran can actually, well not the Terran, the Zerg can actually clean up your army pretty effectively, even if they do have a more dominant army. Now we do see some Hellions pushing in, probably looking to do some damage to the economy, but they are going to meet a Queen as well as a Evolution Chamber and a Roach Warden and a Spinecrawler Wall-In. This building placement was actually used pretty predominantly in the beta, but it was mainly against 4-gating Zerg. Oh, not 4-gating Zerg. Wow, that'd be OP. 4-gating Protoss, sorry, because that actually increased the walking distance, and you can actually have your roaches fire down from, say, the ramp or behind some of the buildings. So that did help improve your defense. It could work for the Hellions since they kind of do have to take this long route past the 2 queens to get into the main, but the Marines are going to be able to take that down pretty quickly, and unless OneHand does get some defenses up here pretty soon, he is going to be taking down that Roach Warden as well, delaying his tech. He does have 3 queens, but they aren't really in range to do much at the moment. The Evo Chamber does fall, the Broodlings are going to cause some damage, not really killing off all that much, and this Roach Warden is going to fall as well. And he's probably going to snipe a couple queens, either that or he's just going to choose to pull back since he has done enough damage to the Zerg so far. Brockemon is getting his second command center up. He probably should change that to an orbital command so he can start gathering up some energy. And we do see more Hellions being produced by the Terran. He also has 2 more factories up, both of them getting a tech lab, and we are still running on 1 barracks for the Terran. Now he does choose to fall back after doing some damage to the Zerg, and Zerg is reacting by getting extra 2 Spine Crawlers, and he did manage to get a couple roaches out before the Roach Warden did fall, but at the moment the Zerg's tech is actually pretty delayed. He is stacking up gas quite a bit since he didn't really expect his Roach Warden to fall that quickly. Now the Terran is pushing again with a significant number of Hellions, but he isn't choosing to bring the Marines. Now he is. So he is just going to hang out at the middle, try to pick off any scouting Zerglings or scouting drones for the moment. Now this Overlord is actually in a pretty good position. If we look down here to the Terran's vision, he doesn't actually have vision of this corner, so he is probably going to be looking to get a Nidus network up, which he actually is, and he's also getting a Baneling's nest. So what the Zerg could possibly be doing is running Banelings into his into the Terran's worker line and basically trying to do as much damage to the workers as possible. Now the Hellions did try to poke in, but he did say that there were 2 Spine Crawlers there. He isn't going to take that much of a risk, especially since he can get sniped off by the roaches. Now the Nice Net Worm is coming up at the Terran's base. We will have to see if the Terran reacts quickly enough. The Terran does not have vision of this at all. He does have the 2 Hellions there, so he isn't really expecting all that much to come at the moment. The Nice Network does fall, and if you look at the minimap, the Terran does react pretty quickly. He is pulling all his units back into the bottom of the base, since he knows that that is the most undefended place right now. The Hellions are even being pushed out at the moment, so the Zerg can actually choose to push out at the front of the base as well, forcing the Terran to split up his army and making this push more effective. Now the Terran units are moving in. He does have a siege tank. Siege mode is not finished, so the Roaches are actually going to have some free reign on the siege tank, so he probably should try to snipe them out pretty quickly. But with the significant number of Marines, he is even pulling the SCVs off the line. This attack is going to get basically terminated. Now we do see OneHand trying to keep up on the lava inject, letting that slip slightly. At the moment it's not really going to drag him down too much. It has slowed down his arm reduction quite a bit, but at this point in the game, since things are actually kind of slowing, things are really picking up very slowly, it's not really going to do all that much. And I actually managed to talk about lava injects for 15 seconds. Nice. We do see Baneling Speed come up. That is going to help him deal with this massive army of siege tanks, since you want to get to the siege tanks before they can take off a lot of shots. Now it does scan to take out the creep tumors. This is going to slow the Banelings down even more. It's going to slow the roaches down and make the Terrans push more effective. But he does choose to fall back. Doesn't really want to overcommit to this attack, since he is basically looking to get his third. So we are probably going to be seeing these rocks getting broken down, or he is probably going to choose to go for the high yield. We will just have to wait and see. Zerg is not opting to get his third yet. He is getting a couple Banelings up and only just now starting to break down the rocks. The Terran has not started to break down the rocks yet, but the command center is not finished yet, so he still does have some time left. Now the Hellions are splitting off to scout for any additional bases that were thrown down, since he didn't really see the Zerg's third get thrown up. So he's just scouting around, making sure that the Zerg didn't throw down hatch somewhere else on the map. Now the rocks are getting broken down. They are going to get taken down a lot more quickly than the Zerg, which only has a handful of Zerglings attacking it. So Terran is going to be able to get his expansion up a lot quicker. So if we switch to the income tab, we do have 1,400 minerals per minute for the Zerg, with only 1,200 minerals for the Terran. We don't really see all that many mules being thrown down. He could afford to throw down a mule now, but he is probably just saving it for a scan since he is pushing across the map right now. So the Hellions are running out in front. You kind of want to keep it with the rest of the army, especially since you're on creep. Zerglings can rush in really quickly and get behind the Hellions and basically attack the main army. I don't know if this is on purpose, but this is actually pretty good basically unit position by Brockemon. He did have the siege tanks surrounding the Marines, so it is going to take a lot more Banelings to take down the siege tanks in order to get to the buy units, which get torn to shreds by Banelings. Could have been a fluke, but never know. Now Brockemon does get his third up. He isn't saturating it just yet. He is throwing a couple of turrets just to be safe, because OneHand does have a couple of mutas on the field, getting an in-base hatchery. With Zerg's unit composition, I understand that he can't really defend his units all that well, but if he decided to scout the Terran a bit, he'd know that he is also deciding to get his third up, so he isn't going to really be expecting much aggression from the Terran for some time, so he probably could try to take a small risk and go for that third rather than getting that in-base hatch, but I guess he didn't really feel too safe doing so. Terran is getting level 1 vehicle weapons up. He is also getting a Thor out to deal with these mutas. He is also getting a planetary fortress at his somewhere. Getting his planetary fortress at the third. I completely missed that. Now this Terran is not this Terran. This Hellion is still alive, so you can actually feel free to run down. Okay, maybe he can't run down. So yeah, that's just going to be hangout for scouting purposes. Crucius dropping the ball. Now we do see OneHand going for his third finally. He is actually pretty behind at the moment. The Terran does have 3 Thors out, a significant number of siege tanks, Hellions and Marines. So if we look at the unit composition, Zerg only has 32 Zerglings, 8 mutas and 11 Banelings. That is not going to be enough to deal with this army. He could get lucky again like last time and basically wipe the entire army out with his Banelings, but with only a handful of Banelings, 16 Banelings in production, 8 actually on the field, so that's going to be 24 if my maths doesn't fail me. It could take a couple of siege tanks, could maybe take up the Thors, but other than that, if he doesn't manage to get good Banelings shots off, he isn't going to be able to do all that much. The siege tanks do siege up, so they are going to be doing quite a bit of damage to any units that do run in. This includes the Banelings, which is really important. Siege tanks that are sieged up are basically the counter to the Banelings. They're going to snipe them off pretty quickly, unless they are on the creep and do have speed upgrades, but with this many siege tanks, he is going to be able to take them out very quickly. Now he is just bunny hopping into the Zerg's base, so the Zerg is actually in quite a bit of trouble right now. Brockemon is keeping up on his reinforcements, getting more Thors, getting more Marines, getting more siege tanks. Zerg is getting level 1 Carapace upgrade. That is actually kind of late. I'd expect that to be up slightly earlier in the game, but because the Terran did apply quite a bit of pressure, that was delayed quite a bit. Now the Terran does spot the third, so he is probably going to try to snipe that out since he knows that really isn't saturated at the moment. And he OneHand did pull all the drones out of the natural expansion and transferring it to the main. Now we do see another Nidus network actually coming up. Most of these Banelings do take out the remaining SCVs. He does force the command center to lift off, and that actually is forcing the Terran to return back to his base. He doesn't have anything in there at the moment to defend. He does have 1 Thor that just popped out, and if it actually 2 Thors that just popped out. Now he could deal with these roaches pretty easily, but obviously his attention was elsewhere, and he really needs to take out this Nidus network really quickly before he does manage to defend. Now this 1 Hero Thor is taking on all these roaches, but that is going to get taken out pretty easily. Now Brockemon is supply blocked at the moment, 83 supply out of 183 supply out of 180. So that is going to delay him slightly, but since Zerg is only sitting on 99 supply at the moment, that isn't going to really cause him too much trouble. Now in the meantime, OneHand did manage to get a significant number of roaches up. He did manage to get a significant number of Banelings up, so he is going to be able to defend any aggression that comes out at the moment. But the Terran has actually messed up an even scarier force. He's also choosing to get his 4th base up, so the Terran is actually only sitting on 3 bases. His natural isn't really mining all that efficiently. His 3rd isn't mining all that efficiently, so Zerg is going to be really behind on income. Now the push from the Terran is coming out. The Hellions are around the front. That they are going to soak up quite a bit of roach damage, while the Siege Tanks do have a chance to siege up. Now again, the Terran is keeping all his units clumped together. He really needs to split them up ASAP, since he does know Banelings are on the field. Now these units right here are actually pretty vulnerable to a Baneling rush right now, but the Siege Tanks do have that covered. He does have slight weakness at his ramp, so he could probably shift a couple Siege Tanks forward to help deal with that. Now the hatchery at the natural does fall. He can choose to go for the 3rd, which he is doing pretty well with some Hellions, but they're not going to do all that much damage. Now he is pushing up with the Thors. These Overlords are actually going to take quite a bit of damage. OneHand is rushing a couple of Banelings into the Thors, but they aren't really going to do all that much damage. One Hero Queen was about to attack, but pulled it back just in time. Now the Roaches and Banelings do move in. The Roaches are trying to snipe out as many Thors as they can. Banelings try to clear the way, but not really doing that much of an effective job this time around. The Roaches do get taken out pretty quickly from the Siege Tank shelves, and that's basically Zerg's entire army wiped out. OneHand does GG out of this game. This game was kind of more of an economic loss rather than a mechanics loss. The Terran did apply some pretty effective pressure from the start, and while he did so, he did expand. He got his economy up pretty quickly, and basically overwhelmed the Zerg purely with an economic advantage. As we do see near the end of that, at the moment the Terran pushed, Zerg was sitting on around 100 or so supply. At that point, Terran was maxed, so it was a 200 mech army versus a 100 T1.5 Zerg army. That is never a position you want to be in, so yeah. So the score is 2-1 at the moment in Brockemon's favour. At this current pattern, maybe OneHand may be able to take the 4th match, even up once again, since it has gone in alternating favours at the moment, but OneHand does need to win the next match to stay in this set of matches to take it to an ace match. That is a lot of matches in the one sentence. Yeah. But yeah, we'll be right back with game 4, and hopefully OneHand can take up the next map so we can have yet another game between these two excellent players. This has been Crucius for IntoStarCraft and you Sid and you South Starsock, and I'll be right back.